Hello, and welcome to Let's Get Personal, where we're going to be talking about understanding yourself and others, talking about different personality tests, but really focusing in on the temperaments. There is a lot to this. So, this is just an introduction that I kind of want to talk about as well. I could talk for days and weeks on this topic, but this again is just kind of an overview of how you can start to get personal with people. So there are multiple different tests, and I've taken all of these different tests, and there are more than what is listed on this list. So feel free to kind of explore these different tests, and you're able to use them in the classroom. My favorite test where I started to learn about personalities is the True Colors test. And this is based on four different colors. And after you take that test, um, you're kind of grouped into a category and you're able to provide feedback and understand people a little bit better on the way that they're wired. The Enneagram has 9 different numbers. So it kind of takes these other tests and goes more in depth of what really makes you the way that you are. The one that we're going to talk about today is this temperament assessment. So if you have not taken a test, I would say pause the video, go take these tests and try it out. See where you land and where your personality or your temperament might be. So again, we're really going to dive deep into the temperaments assessment. I do, though, want to shout out Stephanie Rothstein, who did kind of get me obsessed with personality tests. And she has a website, it's called Can We Talk? And if you click on this image, it will take you to a video. She goes over this in amazing detail. So I really wanted to, again, focus on those temperaments where she's focusing on the True Colors personality test, on how to have conversations and give really powerful feedback. If you click on this icon, it's going to take you to the Google form where you can take this type of test. And I like to take both different types of tests to kind of compare and contrast where I resonate with. So again, follow Stephanie Rothstein on Twitter. She also has a website. It's called canwetalkedu.org. If you want to set up all of these resources in your own classroom, it's amazing. But again, I would definitely watch her YouTube video after this session. You're just like, okay, I want more, because that is what got me started on temperaments, personality tests, and how to really better serve students. And to be honest, when I first started coaching, I am the yellow or the red on the temperaments assessment. And what that means is I'm very task oriented focused. And I wasn't sitting down and asking the other people in the room, how are you? And for some people, that's really important to do first, where I was just getting to the task, getting it done. And so this test, this knowledge has really helped me build relationships and understand people at a whole new level. I can even speak to it with my own son. He is also a red gold, and what that means is he's very stubborn. And so I have to switch my wording with him because what I was doing is I was disciplining him when I needed to kind of think differently about it. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we get going. But I just want to keep in mind that Stephanie Rothstein has an amazing resource as well. Okay, so going back to my son when it was not working. So I do use this with parenting. I've got a 3-year-old and a little baby. And what kind of happens if what I was thinking is my current approach to disciplining him is not working? I started to feel really stuck. I was getting frustrated. I was playing like the power up card and it wasn't working with his personality, his temperament, and it was really ineffective punishment. When I started to change my language, change the way I worded things, I started to see different results and our relationship got stronger. So I would say that we were kind of battling back and forth, right? Because as a red, you want power. He wanted power. So we both couldn't have that power. We both wanted control. We both can't have that control. And so I started to learn what I needed to say and how I needed to respond to him in different situations. And it kind of seems backwards because you think I would be like taking the high road of like, you need to listen to me, you need to do this, you need to do that, and taking more of like, okay, if you don't do this, you're going to get time out. But it was really looking at his strengths because each personality has strengths and weaknesses, and using some of that verbiage in my language to really help him. And it is a foreign language. This is something that I'm still working on. And as you learn it, you're going to want to have different resources, which we're going to talk at the end, to help you get fluent in all of these different languages and to be able to point out all those different colors quickly and then to pause and know how to respond to them. Because a lot of times I was responding to the what and not the why. And so now that I know what the why is behind a lot of these different personalities and temperaments, I'm able to respond a lot better to individuals and help them better succeed. So again, if your current approach is not working, this is for you. And it doesn't hurt to just try it. So, where does this come from? It comes from Hippocrates. So, this is way, way back in the day. And he studied how people naturally respond to situations. Just like we need air and water to live, we have these innate needs as well, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But we've got our yellow, and they really are fun. They're our excitement. They're sociable. They're always people. They love people. Your reds, they are your leaders. They are determined, and they will get a task done. Your blues, they are analytical and they're very literal. They also love checklists. Everything's perfect with them. They have like the cleanest house, and they just really know how to edit a paper, right? And then we've got our greens, and these greens are relaxed and they're very thoughtful. They are always considering other people's needs before their own. And so again, this dates back to Hippocrates back in the day. And then from there, people have just been kind of taking what he's known and applying that in other situations. So again, we're uniquely wired, and we're uniquely wired to do all of these different things in the world. We need every single color in the world. We need every single person because we all, again, have strengths and we all have weaknesses. And so our yellows, they see the best in people and those around them. They are the ones that can really see a person for who they are and appreciate them exactly the way that they are. They're the silly ones. They like to laugh. They love to have fun. And they love to be curious, creative. They're spontaneous. They always see the bright side of almost everything. Reds, they are your visionaries. They see and achieve goals. Typically, when you're talking to a red, you're going to hear different words like task and I've got to do this and I got to do that. They're confident, they are decisive, they're efficient, they're resourceful. Then you have your blues, and your blues are the ones that are safe, right? Like they know, and they are always going to have like a plan B. They also can really creatively problem solve as well. So they're creative, they're serious, they're honest, they're independent, they are a good listener, they're always on time typically. And then your greens, these are your people that stay calm in any type of chaos. They are always just calm and collective. And these people are kind, they're caring, they're calm, they're friendly, they're a great listener, they're easygoing. They have a hard time making a decision. They will typically go with whatever everybody else kind of wants to do. And this is what makes up our world, is kind of these four different categories of people. Now, everybody, again, has different strengths and weaknesses, but these are like the four kind of overview of what we're going to dive into today of these colors. Here is just kind of some other areas to really get to know these people. So their basic desire for greens is they just want peace. They want no conflict. They just want peace. So if you're thinking of people that you might know, who is it that when you bring up conflict, they might flee, they go away? And then your blues, they want perfection. Everything must be correct and right before they ship it. Where your reds, they want control. They want to be in charge. They want to have like a sense of everything is flowing in the right direction. And then your yellows are those fun individuals. They just love to have fun, and they love to kind of explore. And it's like a party when you're around them. And we all have emotional needs. So for a green, they need peace and quiet. Sometimes after a busy day, they just want to go back to their room and relax before they do something else. A lot of times we might see greens as lazy, because they put off task, and you can see what they control by that procrastination. So these might be the students that are just so overwhelmed that they don't even know where to get started. Also, their feeling of worth, the lack of stress, and respect. Okay, so that is kind of their needs of what they need in order to be healthy and ready to kind of go for the world. And this is also kind of what shows their strengths. So if we're meeting their needs, those emotional needs, we're meeting their strengths. When we don't meet those strengths, what we see is what they control by. We start to see that procrastination in greens if we are not meeting their strengths. They're also witty, they're very easygoing, they're introverted, which we're going to talk about as well in a little bit. Blues, they want perfection, right? They're sensitive, they're support, they need space, and they want silence. And when they are not meeting those needs, you're going to have a moody person who is someone that you probably don't even want to be around. Sometimes they will even play the 20 question game. So instead of just telling you what's wrong, they want you to ask them multiple times. And we're going to talk about how to get out of that trap when it comes to working with blues. These people are organized and they are very goal focused, and they're also introverted. Your reds, they're very loyal, sense of control, they have appreciation, and they want credit for their work. And when they are not happy or when they're not in their healthy place, they're going to threat anger. And when you see a red that's very angry, it might be like, stop yelling. But to them, they're not yelling. They're just really kind of like, okay, nothing is aligned and this is what needs to happen. They are also organized and goal focused, and they're also extroverts. So we're going to get into those extroverts as well. And then your yellows, they're the fun. They want attention, affection, approval, and acceptance. And they will control by charm. So they're witty, they're easygoing, they're not goal focused, and they are extroverted as well. So again, this is kind of a quick overview, but basically here what you want to focus in on is this emotional needs. These are the needs that people need, just like air and water. Okay, we need this to be healthy. We need this to be kind of focused. And so when we're dealing with kids and we know their color, we can focus on what they need, and we're able to create these healthy individuals that are going to have this confidence when they become an adult. What they control by, these are kind of our signals. So when we start to hear anger, we know a red needs something, okay? And we're going to kind of spot, okay, what kind of need do they need in order to be kind of successful? So then there's verts. So when it comes to verts, I want you to think of this maybe differently than you have in the past. There's introverts. They are the ones that are going to think inwardly first. They're going to process their thoughts and feelings before they speak. So that right there is our greens and our blues. These people are going to think. They need to process before they give you an answer. Think, pair, share works great for greens and blues. Your extroverts. This is your group that needs to think outwardly, okay? So whatever they're feeling, they need to express it outwardly. And sometimes this is difficult when you have a red and a blue maybe working together, because your red is just going to talk out loud what they're processing and what they're thinking. And your blue might get kind of offended because they're like, well, you just said that. You're not processing that. And so I think it's really important to maybe even state, sometimes when I'm in a meeting with a teacher, I'm a red. I'm just going to talk this out loud. This is not the final plan. I just have to process by thinking out loud, especially if I'm working with a green or a blue. So my husband, he's green. Sometimes I'm just like, okay, I just need you to listen for a second. We're not going to do any of this, but I just need to process and kind of say what I'm feeling. And it might kind of sound like they're like unsure or kind of like that because they're just talking out loud. But again, this is how we process and think about our feelings when we're talking about verts. The next one is you're either task or people oriented. So you've got your reds and your blues, and they are very task focused. And then you have your yellows and your greens who are people focused. And this is really, really important because this is kind of what is behind what motivates us as well when we're thinking about our students. And so, some of the things that you might hear when you are working with these different types of people is the blues and the reds. You might hear, hurry up, it's time to go. Are you done with that yet? I will take care of it for you. Let me just finish one more thing. Where a green and a yellow, they're going to say, like, it sounds fun. Let's go together. Who is going to be there? I can't wait to see you tonight. I can come over and help you. See how the red and the blues language is more focused on task, where the green and the yellow is more focused on the people. And so when we're looking at these two things, when it comes to introverts or extroverts, or when we're looking at task or people, this right here can give you a lot of information real quick about a student. Does this student need time to process their information before they talk in a discussion? Or can they just get up and talk their ideas out loud? When it comes to task and people, how are you going to group your students? Do you need to maybe use all the colors in a grouping, or do you want it to motivate a green and say, okay, you're going to work on this together in a group? Where a red might need to want to work independently because they want to get the task done. So thinking about all of that right now are kind of two things that you can quickly take away with you after today's session. And now we're going to kind of talk about coffee. So now that we kind of know all the colors, this is what it looks like in the real world. Okay. So with the green, they are very indecisive. Okay. They can't decide. They're always thinking about all of the different consequences of what could happen. So let's say it's later in the day. Should I have coffee? Well, do I want to stay up? Am I going to have to pee in the middle of the night? They're thinking about all of those different things. So again, they're not going to just be able to say yes or no. They're going to kind of maybe go along with what you say, or if you say that you're going to do like whipped cream and all this stuff, that's going to overwhelm them, and they're probably just going to say no, and they just want water. So it's really interesting with a grain because, again, they probably won't give you a decision, and they will probably just kind of be like, I don't know if I want it, because they're thinking about the stress, the consequences to all of that. You're blue. They're going to drink that coffee even if they don't want it because someone took the time to make it. Okay. So your blues are kind of your people pleasers that are just going to be like, okay, they made it. I'm just going to say, yes, I will take that coffee. And then your reds, they're going to be able to make that decision and they're going to live with it. So again, if they have coffee right before bed, they know it's going to be a difficult day, but they made that decision and they're just going to live with it. They can quickly say yes or no to coffee. Your yellows, they're probably making the coffee because they just love to serve people. And they are probably making it fun. They're adding different flavors, a fun mug, maybe whipped cream. All of the fun in that coffee is where it's coming from, that yellow, where everybody else might just kind of keep it pretty normal, where your yellows are really making it fun. So again, we have those innate needs, and these are really important to learn. So with your yellows, your reds, your greens, and your blues. So I know we talked about them a little bit, but again, these are just huge to kind of start to learn. And when you're able to kind of know real quick what these people are, either using that survey or being able to just kind of point them out, this is going to be really kind of fun. So when it comes to approval, they want to be loved for who they are, flaws and all. They want to be loved for who they are. Okay, so we want to tell these people, like, I'm happy that you're in my class this year. When it comes to acceptance, they want to be invited and included, and they want to feel like they are the most important thing in the world. So this is kind of saying like, hey, we're going to reschedule because you're not able to make it, and it won't be the same without you. So giving them those kind of compliments is filling their tank. Attention, they want your undivided attention. So a lot of times for me, because I'm a red, I'm task focused, I might have to say, um, can you give me 5 minutes to get this task done? And then you have my undivided attention. So I will finish what I'm working on, and then I'm able to sit with that person, computer closed, eye contact with them, and really focusing on what they need. And then that affection. So they want to be noticed and acknowledged and admired. This is where you're going to be like, good morning, I'm happy to see you. I could use one of your awesome hugs, that kind of information there. Now we're going to go into our reds. So with our reds, they want loyalty. They want to know that they are important to you. So you might kind of say different things like this. How about we just do something today, just the two of us? Okay. They want to know that you have their back. So maybe they finish something early in class. Hey, can you go deliver this to Miss Brown while everybody else catches up? Okay, they want you to kind of be aware that, hey, they've got their stuff done and they are ready for the next thing. A sense of control. They want everyone pulling their weight and doing what they said they would. So sometimes a red can get really frustrated with others because if you tell a red, I'm going to do this, you better follow through. Or it could harm that relationship. So again, it's really important to follow through when you have that red. And so some things like this could be like, we're having spaghetti for dinner tonight. Okay, just like you requested. Okay, you're following through with that request. When it comes to appreciation, they want to know and hear that you notice what they have accomplished. Sometimes my son, especially myself, I will send people screenshots of what I've done for the day. Or he'll bring home an artwork, and instead of throwing away, I have to put it up on the fridge. You have to make it a really big deal. They want you to notice what they have accomplished. And so, for example, in the classroom, you did this extra credit of work, and I am so impressed by it. Okay. You're giving them some appreciation for what they have done because they are probably have accomplished more than anybody else in a particular day. And then appreciation. This is where it comes with they feel seen for their unique strengths. Okay, so they feel very seen for their strengths. You're kind of telling them, like, I can always count on you because you're very responsible. So those are the needs of the red. And when it comes to the greens, what they need is harmony. So they want and they need to hear communication so they can relax because they know all around them is well. So this could be kind of like, thanks for helping us reach a compromise. I feel great about what we decided. Feeling of worth is their next one. This is where they might need to feel seen and valued. Where they're talking about what would you have done without you today? You were so calm and focused. These people are going to be the focus of when you're in stressful comfort situations. Lack of stress, they need lack of stress. So they're not lazy, but they do have a different pace and timeline than all the other colors. So when you're talking to them about this, even though it's not required, you can retake the test tomorrow if you want to raise your grade. Okay, you're giving them kind of that language of if you want to and allowing them to have that choice. Respect, this is where you're going to ask and value their input. When it comes to respect, a lot of times they're not going to speak up. They're introverted. They want you to include them in the conversation. So you're going to need to say their name and ask them to be included in the conversation. So you might also kind of say, I would love to hear your thoughts. You always have a unique perspective. That can really kind of help a green add to the conversation and feel respectful. So again, these are all things that are filling up our cup. When it comes to blues, safety is huge. They are always thinking about different things in the environment, and they're always a little nervous. So we need them to feel safe in their environments and where they can trust. So a blue, you might want to say something like, I will keep everything just between the two of us. Sensitivity. This is where they want you to acknowledge their words and actions and know that they can have that impact on them. So maybe it's like, I wanted to tell you the news early so you would have some time to process it. Okay, so this isn't coming out to public knowledge yet, but I want you to know just so you have a couple more days or more time to process this information. Support, when it comes to support, they want you to feel like you're there to help them. They love Reds because Reds are able to kind of help them. Reds might be kind of those task doers that are kind of like, I know you don't have the time to do laundry this week. Would you like me to do it for you? Okay. Or I know you don't have time to do this. I'm ready and willing to help. Okay. So these people love the support. Space and silence, they might need just time to decompress and process and think. And so a lot of times I might just say, okay, let's spend 10 minutes quietly reading before we jump into today's lesson. So we're able to kind of give them just some space and silence before we get started. Okay, and again, this is kind of a quick overview about all of these needs that are what make the world. So once we meet all of these needs, we're going to see students and adults in their best. They're going to be in their best when we're meeting these needs. Okay, so again, full tank and empty tank. So we kind of talked about this, but let's just really quick recap that when we're operating on our strengths, yellows, they're going to be very encouraging. Reds, they're going to be influential and decisive. Blues are very thoughtful. Greens are going to be generous. When our tanks are empty, this is when we operate out of our weakness. This is when we start to see different behaviors in our classroom pop up because of different weaknesses. So yellow might interrupt. They're going to be very dramatic. Reds are going to be very selfish and they're not going to be flexible. Blues might be moody and greens might be stubborn or very sluggish. Okay. So again, we want to operate on that full tank. And when we're not meeting these needs, we sometimes will operate on an empty tank. So let's go ahead and let's look deeper into all of these different colors. So I'm going to read a scenario and I want you to just kind of think about how you would respond to the student in your class. Okay, so our yellows love the look at me type of feel. And I want you to also think what need is not being met. Okay, so a student usually jumps right into class discussion, but today is distracted. Okay, so they love to talk, they love to be in your class. They're seeking guidance or they're sneaking glares at their phone after a couple of warnings. You can tell him to put his phone away on your desk until class is over. When he comes to retrieve it, you ask, "What is going on with you today?" He immediately apologizes and says his mom was sending him messages. And you just don't believe that, right? You have that student that kind of says that, and you're just like, what? Before he admits that he was communicating a girl that he likes. Okay, so this student is on their cell phone. You take their phone away, and they said they were talking to mom, and they lied to you. Okay, how do you respond? What's the need though first? So typically we respond because we're like, oh my gosh, that was very disrespectful. He lied to me. But instead of just responding, we're responding to the what in that situation. We need to go to the why. So why is this student, why did they have their phone out? Okay, so we got to think of that need. And so when we're thinking of that need, what one of these needs is not being met? Okay, and it's affection. Okay, this student wants to be acknowledged, they want to be admired, and they're trying to seek a like from this girl that's in the class. So instead of tearing the student down, putting them in detention, because again, yellows love people. So when they are isolated from people, we're going to start seeing their weakness start to kind of flow. And this is, again, this is backwards kind of than what you're used to thinking. So for a yellow, what I might say is that next day, because they want acceptance and approval, I'm going to remind him that when he comes into class, that our class discussions are way more interesting when he participates. He's willing to speak up and inspires everyone to get involved. Why don't you kick things off for us today? So instead of, again, giving it attention or doing some type of punishment, I'm going to build this student up. And it's hard. You're relearning your language. It's a different language completely, but it takes practice. And what I'm going to tell that students is class discussion is so much more interesting, right? It's so much better when you're here participating. You inspire others to get involved. And what I did is I took some of that language from their strengths and I was able to apply it in this situation. And what I kind of did is I created a hub for my knowledge. So there was a bunch of books and research that I'm going to share at the end. And um, this whole hub has these strengths and weaknesses. So I can see here that I could use these words when I am trying to talk with that student, those strength words. And I want to avoid these weakness words when I'm talking with this student. Okay. So next student is our reds, okay? Also with reds, this is really hard for teachers. They're always kind of asking, why do I always have to thank this student for doing what is expected of them? I always hear that conversation come up. And honestly, to a red, it's their love language, okay? So if you appreciate a red, they are going to get over and above for you. Okay, you might hear a red say, I'll do this by myself because they are just, again, they're used to kind of doing things by themselves. We went over their needs, but let's go ahead and listen to this situation. A student comes storming into your class and she slams the door. She rolls her eyes and is barking at other students in your class. When you ask her what is wrong, she yells, I don't want to talk about it. Just leave me alone. And she storms up the stairs, talking about something and staying out of her business. Okay, was the student disrespectful? Yes. Was she unkind to other students? Yeah. Okay. So typically what we do is we discipline the student, right? And when we send this student to timeout or whatever, what they're going to do is they're not going to reflect on what they did wrong. They're plotting a revenge, okay? They are plotting some type of revenge of how they're going to get back at you or they're going to make the situation worse. So again, it's not helping. It's pouring gasoline and it's going to kind of go bad. So how do we respond to this, okay? I want you to kind of think about how you would respond. But first, what need from this little child is not being met? Okay, so she stormed into class. We're asking her what's wrong. We're seeing that anger. And from the situation, it's credit for work. Okay, so we're not letting them know or we're not doing all of our parts. And this student is just really frustrated, okay, because when we talk to the student, maybe it was something that happened on social media and everybody saw it, right? So their reputation for a red is really important to them. They want to hold that high repetition, that high standard for themselves, that others think highly of them. So to build these students up, we need to remind them that they have earned and they've built up their reputation. Okay. And whatever that person posts on social media completely contradicts with what is really happening. Okay. And even though people say hurtful things and how they respond, we need to build them up by their strengths and coaching her away from using her weaknesses. So again, reds are going to be your angry kids. And what we have to do is we have to learn how to train them to use their strengths. Okay. When these type of situations come, so that they can respond better. All right, your blues. Your blues are like your perfect students. And they're kind of like, if it's worth doing it right. These students might take forever to get something turned in because they're wanting perfection. So listen to kind of this student. Walking into class, you ask how his day went, and he says terrible. He says without offering another detail. You ask if something happened with a friend. No. On the bus? No. At this rate, it will take all evening to figure out what causes his bad day. Okay, so this student is about to play 20 questions. And you can keep playing 20 questions, but does that work? Typically, no. So what you want to do is you want to maybe pause. Okay, so here I am pausing. And I'm going to say, I'm sorry, it's such a rough day. I'm going to start working on my student check-ins. However, I'm going to save you a seat right next to me, and you can come over and tell me whatever you want whenever you feel like it. 10 minutes later, okay, that 10 minutes is huge for this blue child because, again, they need space and they need time to process. He comes over and he tells you he didn't understand the new material covered this week. And on his pop quiz, he bombed, but really he got an 88%. But bombed is huge for these kids because they want 100% all of the time. So what need is not being met for this student right here? Support, sensitivity, right? And so how are you going to respond to this student? The timing of the quiz must have felt awful since you're usually well prepared and confident with the material. It's awesome that you care so much about excelling in school. Do you already have a plan B for getting up to the speed? You are such a good problem solver. I'm interested to hear what your strategy will be. However, typically with these students, we're like, 88, that's good enough. You pass. Like that is good enough. They don't want to hear that though. They're already beating themselves up. Okay. These are the kids that are already going to time out without you sending them there. They're already beating themselves up. So we need to uplift them. We need to build them up. And so again, by doing that is we can get their advice on hearing, do you have a plan B? What do you plan on doing? Okay. And again, that pause in that situation to allow them that time of 10 minutes to kind of get ready to speak to you rather than having them just come over and playing that 20 questions game. Now the green. The green is the one that is going to do whatever you want, right? They're that type that is just kind of like, I will do whatever you say or whatever you think we should do. Also, I think sometimes with greens, these are the students that procrastinate. And when we respond with nagging, it increases their stress. And what we learned earlier is that they do anything to avoid stress. They will move even slower when we nag these students. Okay. So again, nagging these students is not the best thing to do. So the situation here, let's go ahead and pull that up. The student turns in their essay and you are wowed by their work. Of course, it's one of your green students. After class, you pull them aside and say, this was really incredible work. I know about a few scholarship contests and I think you should submit the essay. I will send you the details. 2 weeks later, you ask the student if he submitted his work to the contest and he says no. Since the deadline is approaching, you offer to meet him before school and next day to submit his work altogether, but he does not show. When you see him later in the halls, you are upset and ready to tell him. Okay, so again, what need is not being met here? So this student turned in an amazing essay. You ask them to do a scholarship and they don't do it, right? The red is going to do it, but your green is like putting it off and they're procrastinating. So again, think real quick, what type of need is not being filled? So right here, it's respect, lack of stress, feeling of worth, okay? And what you can do to build these students up is that you can't force a student to do something that they're not interested in, okay? I've fought that for years. But what you can do is validate. So these students need compliments. They need you to speak their language, even if it does not motivate them to act. You need to say something like, I'm sure all the entries requirements are feeling pretty overwhelmed. So when you look at that, sometimes it's best for a green to break down that task into smaller chunks. You also might want to say that you're so impressed with their creativity and humor in their essay. If it were me, I would share it with as many people as possible. So again, you're building these students up, but it's your essay and I want your respect, your opinion. Are you interested in this contest? And are there any obstacles that are in your way? So again, they're not going to share with you up front their needs. So you might have to kind of ask these students, what do you need? What can I do to really help you when it comes to all of these different things? So I also want to kind of talk about as well, using my hub, is we can see here that every single buddy has different strengths and weaknesses. Okay. And when we live in our strengths, we're in a good place. We're energized. We are warm. We're maybe uptight or fragile, loyal, all of these different things. And we all have different emotions in the way that we respond to situations. So, one way that a green might respond compared to a red could be completely opposite. And those two colors are opposite when it comes to that. And when we're in our weaknesses, we might seem loud, we might seem in your face, hesitant, dull. Okay. And it's really, again, important to kind of think about our different temperaments and how we respond to people. And so I love to use this resource here where it talks about grown-ups and how we can react. So for example, I am a red grown-up. And so when I am working with different people, I need to kind of think about it. So when I'm working with my red son, I need to prepare for that battle, right? I need to know there's going to be a battle. And I also need to not pull rank. It's okay that I don't win in this situation because his love is more important than me winning this battle. I also want to redirect towards solutions, and I want to give them the opportunity to make that decision. Okay. Where if I'm dealing with a green, which is my husband, I need to dial down my speed and my intensity for him. I need to motivate him in a way that is for his interest. Sometimes with green, you have to dangle that carrot in front of them. And I also need to listen to their opinions and their ideas. And I need to help him discover his interests. Sometimes green will morph into other colors. And I need to keep that in mind as well when I'm dealing with him because I don't want him to be me. He has his own strengths when it comes to him being his person. Okay. So again, it can be really, really challenging, but it's very, very important to kind of think about how am I responding and I need to respond differently. You can see here there's like 16 different ways that we can respond, and how we respond really does matter for people. So again, I have these like different cheat sheets that I've kind of made for myself that really does help. Me when I'm working with other people, when I'm coaching adults, or when I'm working with students. And there are different things that we need to work through as we're kind of getting through all of our different strengths and all of our different weaknesses. Okay, so now that we've talked about the different types, we're going to get into now instructional strategies. So when it comes to instructional strategies, feedback, okay? When we give feedback to our joyful yellow, we want to offer them that positive and encouraging feedback that really highlights their energy. We want to provide them that verbal praise. We really want to focus on their strengths, and we want to be mindful of their need for social interaction. So using gallery walks or using tag feedback or glows and grows, those can really help students who are your yellows. Your reds, they need it to be direct, clear, and they need it to be concise, okay? They don't need all the extra fluff. They need just a bullet list of what you liked or what maybe you didn't like. They want you to acknowledge their leadership and their decision-making skills, okay? So they really want you to really highlight their accomplishments and how they progress towards that goal. Okay, so maybe they created like some type of timeline and they were able to get it done. They want you to really talk about that. Like, wow, you got this done before everyone in the class. That's amazing. Encourage them to reflect on their actions and allow them to think about their impact on their choices. Also provide opportunities for them to take charge or lead a discussion or project. Because they are such strong leaders, really help them learn that skill of delegation, where they're able to kind of take that lead and help others. They're going to be really good motivators for other students. Your blues and your greens. So your blues are very detailed, and they need details that kind of focus on their thoughtfulness, okay? They want you to recognize their dedication and commitment to their high quality work. Again, it's going to be almost perfect, these students. You want to be sensitive and very tactful in how you give that feedback. And you also need to be aware that they are probably also self-criticizing themselves. And encourage them to take breaks. Okay, so remind them, hey, it's okay to take a break. I know we're striving for excellence, but we also might need some self-care there. The greens, when you're delivering feedback, it needs to be calm and supportive. They do not like conflict. So reminding them that that harmony and that positive relationship is important. You want to highlight their listening skills. You want to encourage them to participate, and you want to offer opportunities for them to collaborate with others, because that's going to help them be motivated as well. So regardless of the temperament, these are just some really good things when it comes to feedback. Make sure that you are being very clear and you have good examples of what you expect your students to improve on. You want to focus on their growth and their efforts. You want to maintain a balance between positive and constructive feedback. And then you also want to focus on self-reflection and self-assessment. So help students be able to have that metacognition in order to really evaluate their own work and set goals and improvement. When it comes to motivation, okay, so when we're trying to motivate these different students, there's some things here that we really want to focus in on. And what I kind of also like to do is think about what demotivates these students too. So when it comes to a yellow, insisting on silence or stillness can really demotivate them. When you don't say what you're going to do can kind of cause a red to go crazy. When you change your plans or routines, it's going to affect a blue. When you push them to participate, okay, it's going to really kind of make that green maybe stand off and maybe make them not be motivated. So there are things that we can do or say that will demotivate some of our students. Or we might give a yellow too many instructions, we've lost them. Where if we overlook a red's work or we embarrass them in front of others, we're going to demotivate them, and it's going to cause different behaviors to occur in our classroom. When we expect a green to meet rigorous deadlines, or when we have a blue just work and we don't allow them to process and perfect things. So again, it's really kind of important to think about those things as well when we're talking about motivation, because we can do some harm and we can demotivate some of our students. So to motivate them, we want maybe a yellow to work with peers. We want to offer praise. You always want to kind of say fun is coming or make a thing fun, gamify your lessons, have clear goals, a sense of excitement for these students, competition. Where your reds, they need challenging goals. Okay, so you might sit down with a red and create different goals, and they need to achieve them. You might provide different opportunities for leadership. You're going to highlight the relevance of why this is important. You're going to offer them to take ownership of their learning, and you want them to recognize their accomplishments. When it comes to a blue, you want them to value their learning. You want them to provide opportunities for independent work and self-expression. They might need help to break tasks down into manageable steps so it's not so overwhelming. They might also want meaningful feedback along the way and encouraging their creativity. Where green, they're very calm. They want support. They want you to offer them choices. They need encouragement along the way. They need a clear structure and routine. And they might also lose track of time. So keeping track with a timer or something like that might really help these students. They might need some time management skills. And then overall, no matter what the temperament is, we want to maybe set clearer goals with students. We want to connect the material to real life applications. We want to provide regular feedback with these students. We want to be able to offer learning activities and materials that cater to their preferences. We want to create that positive and inclusive classroom. We want to know that students are individuals and their motivation can be influenced by a ton of different things. So just keeping that in mind as well, that you do need to build relationships with your students. Communication. So here we want to maybe, this is more for parent communication. So now that we've kind of talked a lot about students, I also use this with parents when I'm trying to think about how to respond to different parents. Your yellow parents, again, are going to want humor. They're going to want excitement. They're going to want opportunities for them to be involved with their child's education. They want you to celebrate their child's success. Your reds, they want your communication to be brief and to the point. They want it to be clear, and they want you to be respectful of their time. Where a blue, they want your communication to be clear and concise. They might want a variety of different ways that you communicate them, email, phone calls, maybe conferences, and they want you to answer their questions and concerns. Where a green parent, they want you to take the time to get to really know their child. They want you to ask questions and listen to their answers and be respectful of their opinion and feelings. So, with every temperament, we need to be patient, be yourself, be positive, be supportive, and be fair. That is really important when we're working with any temperament. Other kind of strategies as well. So teaching approaches. Golds or yellows want to be included in group activities. Your blues need that structure assignments. Greens, cooperative learning opportunities. Those reds, problem solving tasks. And then when you're trying to group students, mix those different temperaments together so they can learn from each other and they're able to leverage each other's strengths. And then when it comes to assignments, your yellows might want to do an oral presentation where your blues might want to do research. Your greens might want to collaborate with others and your reds might want to take charge of the group. So these are really helpful when you're kind of thinking about, okay, how can I organize my teaching as well? And I want you to just think, you have an opportunity every single day with every single person you encounter to hurt or to help. Okay, so I want you to think about that. Are you going to use this new knowledge to either point out their strengths or their weaknesses? And every single day with our words and with our communication, we can either hurt or help different people. And that's really important to kind of focus in on when we're thinking about all the different colors. And so I want you to, again, you're going to pause and choose. And so when I am thinking about how I am going to work with somebody, it can be very, very difficult because, again, all of those different colors, but there's 3 different things that we're able to do when we're in different situations. Validate their feelings, okay? So first, you might validate, and this might look very different depending on the color. I see how much you want attention right now. Or they're red, I can see how upset you are. Where if they're maybe a blue, I can tell something's not quite right. Where if they're a green, maybe you're feeling overwhelmed, ignored, or taken advantage of. Acknowledge all of these different feelings. So the first thing when you are getting ready to speak and you want to help instead of hurt, validate that person's feelings. The next thing is to compliment their strengths. Okay, so respond to the why rather than the what. And remember, when we are thinking about that why, it goes back to those innate needs. Okay, so when we're thinking about those innate needs, what is it that we need to kind of focus in on? And we're going to respond to that why they're acting the way that they are compared to what is actually happening in front of us. And sometimes these whats are up here. It's charm, maybe flattery, maybe their tone gets really loud in their volume, their mood or their silence, procrastination, and stubbornness. This is, again, really, really important to think about because sometimes we react to the what, which is up here, instead of the main reason that why it's occurring. And then finally, speak their language. Okay, so when we're talking about speak their language, you want to look around for the context. Okay, so right here are what we need to speak. Okay, what is it that they need to hear? And maybe it's what do they need us to do? And what innate need is being triggered. So first thing is validate those feelings, compliment their strengths, and then speak their language. And always, always, always respond to that why, which is these innate needs, instead of the what, which is how they're acting out, which can be very, very disrespectful. So now that we've paused, now I want you to choose. Okay, so what this might look like is I have the tendency to, you fill in the blank with your color. So if you're maybe yellow, I have the tendency to interrupt, but I'm going to choose to be a good listener. Okay, so what's one thing that you can take from today's session and apply it from tomorrow? For me, maybe it's I'm the red. I have a tendency to be bossy, but I'm going to choose to delegate well. Green, I have the tendency to avoid responsibility, but I'm going to choose to cooperate. And then maybe it's a blue. I have the tendency to be critical, but I'm going to choose to be confident or compassionate. So again, think about your weakness here Okay, so again, looking at that list of different weaknesses, how are you going to choose to be better? And it's just one simple thing that we're able to do and to improve ourselves. And here are all of the different resources. These are all of the different resources I have really kind of gathered to learn more about why people act the way that they do. One of my favorite resources is this Grown Ups Guide to Kids Wiring, and you're able to kind of read along. So I highly suggest that you read along with all of these different books to really learn about your child's temperament or about your student's temperament or about other people's temperaments, because it really can be life changing. And just to recap, we learned about different processors. We've got internal processors, which like to think before they speak. We've got our external processors that think out loud, which again can cause a lot of stress in your classroom or your work environment. Task oriented, we've got people that like to complete tasks, where we've got people that love people and they're so focused on people. And that again can cause a lot of different ways to see. And we want to bring out our students' strengths instead of their weaknesses. So thank you so much for joining me today. I have enjoyed this time of talking about temperaments and how we are able to better meet our students' needs and focusing on the why rather than that what. If you need more resources or more information, or you just want to collaborate, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, or my email is right there. I do have a podcast. It's called Control the Chaos EDU. And you can also join our Google group on Gold. This is a collaborative group that loves to collaborate together. And so you'll just click this link, you'll click join, and then you'll be able to communicate with other people in this group. And then I also have a book on executive functioning skills. So again, thank you so much for joining today. I have loved getting to know you and cannot wait to hear how temperaments are being applied in your classroom or in your work environment.